When I bought the house on Maplewood Lane, I thought I'd finally made it. After years of working double shifts and living paycheck to paycheck, I could finally give my daughter, Lily, the kind of safe, peaceful life she deserved. Pine Ridge Estates was everything the brochure promised: tree-lined streets, pastel-colored homes with manicured lawns, and a tight-knit community governed by an HOA that boasted about maintaining standards and protecting property values. At first, it felt like a dream. Neighbors waved. Children rode their bikes without fear. Every porch seemed to glow with the soft light of contentment. But dreams can rot from the inside, and in Pine Ridge, rot had a name: Karen Whitmore. Karen wasn't just a neighbor. She was the president of the Homeowners Association, self-appointed guardian of all that was orderly and appropriate. Her power didn't come from kindness or respect, it came from fear. She wielded HOA rulebooks like weapons and issued violation notices with the glee of a playground bully promoted to principal. She showed up at my door 2 days after we moved in. "Mr. Hart," she said, squinting at me through her designer sunglasses. "Welcome. I noticed your trash bins are visible from the street. That's a violation of Section 3B. You'll want to correct that immediately." I apologized. She smiled, tight-lipped, unsympathetic, and walked away before I could explain that the bins had been placed there by the moving crew. That was the first of many warnings. The second came when I parked my aging Ford Escape on the street overnight. "No overnight street parking," she reminded me via notice taped directly to my windshield. "Per HOA guidelines." I tried to brush it off, but her timing couldn't have been worse. Lily had been struggling that week. The summer heat made her heart condition flare, something to do with the humidity and how it strained her already fragile system. I kept the car close to the front door in case I needed to rush her to the hospital. It was a small defiance, I thought. A necessary one. Karen saw it differently. The third notice arrived with a fine. "Mr. Hart," she said, stopping me in the driveway one morning. "We all make sacrifices to maintain community standards. We can't start making exceptions for everyone who claims to have a special case." I stared at her, stunned. "It's not a claim. My daughter has a serious medical condition. Her cardiologist warned me about the risk of delayed transport. That's why." She raised a hand, cutting me off mid-sentence. "I'm sorry, but we all have our challenges. The rules are what keep this place beautiful. No apology. No humanity. Just rules." Lily was 10 years old and had lived in and out of hospitals since she was a toddler. She never complained, not about the chest pains, not about the constant pills, not even about the surgeries. She was tougher than most adults I knew. But even she could tell that something was wrong with Karen. "She doesn't like us," Lily said one evening, curled beside me on the couch, her voice barely above a whisper. "No," I replied, brushing her hair back. "But we don't need her to." I told myself I could live with the fines. That as long as Lily was safe, I could ignore Karen's power plays and passive-aggressive notes. But the tension in the neighborhood grew heavier with each passing day. Neighbors whispered. Some sympathized quietly, but kept their distance. Karen had that effect. Her influence was subtle, but absolute. I started documenting everything. The notes, the fines, the conversations. Not because I thought I'd need them, but because some part of me knew this wasn't over. That it was building toward something. Something worse. And I was right. One sticky July night, Lily's condition worsened. Fast. One moment she was laughing at a rerun on TV. The next, she clutched her chest, her face pale and twisted in pain. I called 911 with shaking hands, screaming the address into the phone. The operator said an ambulance was en route. I ran outside to unlock the gate, praying they'd arrive in time. And that's when I saw her. Karen. Standing in front of the neighborhood's private entrance like a sentry, her arms folded, her SUV parked sideways across the lane. The gate remained closed. The sirens grew louder in the distance, but the road was blocked. My heart dropped. I yelled for her to move. She didn't flinch. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about rules anymore. This was war. The ambulance's sirens wailed closer, cutting through the thick summer air like a warning bell. I stood frozen at the edge of the street, Lily in my arms, her breath shallow and uneven. Her skin was ghost pale, her body trembling. The terror in her eyes gutted me. She knew what was happening. She'd been through it before. But never this bad. Karen still hadn't moved. Her SUV remained angled across the entrance, completely blocking the narrow lane. One arm rested on her hip, the other held her ever-present clipboard like it was a badge of authority. Her expression wasn't frantic or concerned. It was smug. "You can't be serious," I shouted, rushing toward her. "My daughter is dying." Her mouth tightened. "This gate is for residents only. Emergency vehicles must enter through the secondary access road." "That road adds 3 minutes," I snapped. "She doesn't have that kind of time." Karen didn't blink. "You should have planned better, Mr. Hart. These rules exist for a reason." The ambulance turned the corner and stopped at the barricade. One of the EMTs jumped out, sprinting toward us. "What's going on?" "We need access now." "She's obstructing the entrance," I choked out, gesturing to Karen. "She won't move." "I can't let unauthorized vehicles damage HOA property," Karen interjected. "The gate was closed for a reason." The EMT didn't argue. He turned and waved back to his partner. "Force it. Now." The second EMT reversed the ambulance a few feet, then gunned it forward. The steel gate groaned under the pressure before giving way with a violent crack, splitting open just enough to let the vehicle through. It screeched to a stop in front of me. "Get her in," the first EMT ordered. I laid Lily on the gurney, hands shaking as they connected wires and tubes, rattling off vitals I couldn't understand. The door slammed shut, and in a blink, the ambulance peeled away, disappearing into the night. Karen stood still, watching it vanish. Not once did she look at me. I didn't go with Lily. I couldn't. I had to move my car so the paramedics wouldn't be blocked again on the return trip. And once that was done, I sat in the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing holding me together. I don't remember how long I sat there. At some point, my phone buzzed. It was a text from the hospital. She coded in the ambulance. "They revived her. We're stabilizing now. Please come quickly." She had died. On the way. My little girl's heart stopped while some woman with a clipboard measured out her idea of justice in inches of asphalt. I drove to the hospital in a daze, arriving in time to see Lily through the ICU window, small, pale, covered in wires. Machines blinked and beeped like she was more circuit than human. She survived the night. But the doctor didn't mince words. She lost oxygen. There could be neurological damage. We'll know more in a few days. I nodded. I didn't feel anything. Not anger. Not sadness. Just a cold, hollow space where a father's heart should be. Karen visited 2 days later. She didn't bring flowers. She brought paperwork. "I'm here on official HOA business," she said, standing at the foot of Lily's hospital bed. "Due to the damage your emergency caused to our gate, you'll be fined $1,400. Additionally, you're being cited for unauthorized vehicle access and property damage." She handed me the notice, her expression unreadable. I stared at her, gripping the paper like it might burst into flames in my hand. "You blocked a medical vehicle." "There's a process for these things," she replied. "This isn't personal, Mr. Hart. It's protocol." "Protocol?" My voice was low, deadly. "My daughter died, Karen. And she lived," Karen replied, brushing imaginary dust from her sleeve. "You're welcome." That was it. The final line. The last breath of patience I would ever waste on her. She walked out of that hospital room unbothered. But she'd made a mistake. A fatal one. Not for Lily, thank God, but for herself. Because I wasn't just a desperate father anymore. I was something else now. I was a man with nothing left to lose, and every reason to fight. The day Lily was discharged, I brought her home wrapped in blankets, her head resting against my chest like when she was a baby. The doctors said she'd recovered as well as could be hoped, but I knew what they meant. There would be scars. Not the visible kind, but the quiet damage that would echo for years. Karen's fines were still taped to my front door. That night, After I put Lily to bed, I sat at the kitchen table and stared at them. The charges, the rules, the arrogant signatures, they weren't about community. They were about power. Karen's power. And she had used it to nearly kill my child. I poured a cup of coffee I didn't need and opened my laptop. If she wanted a war, I'd give her one, but not the kind she was used to. Karen fought with rules and bylaws. I'd fight with truth. The next morning, I knocked on Carlos Ruiz's door. Carlos lived 2 houses down. A quiet man in his 50s who tended to his vegetable garden like it was sacred ground. Karen had fined him last spring for planting tomatoes, unsightly and non-compliant with HOA standards. She threatened me with foreclosure, he told me, over a few plants. Then I visited Amy, a single mother raising a nonverbal son. She'd installed a sensory swing in her backyard. Karen called it dangerous and demanded its removal, citing unauthorized structures. I cried for days, Amy admitted. I didn't have the energy to fight. I heard stories like that all over the neighborhood. Seniors fined for wind chimes. Veterans ordered to repaint their mailboxes. Families silenced by threats of escalating fees and liens. Karen had created an HOA that didn't protect residents. It punished them. So I started documenting everything. Photos, letters, emails. I built a timeline of abuse and intimidation, lining up dates and names with Karen's leadership votes. I created a website and called it HOA Tyrants Exposed. I posted the facts, nothing more. Every story I heard, every document I verified. I protected identities at first. No one wanted to be targeted. But the stories spoke for themselves. And then I found it. A neighbor, Devin, had a doorbell camera that faced the main road. He'd captured it, the ambulance, the sirens, Karen standing in the road like some self-appointed gatekeeper, arms crossed while paramedics shouted at her to move. She didn't. The footage was less than 2 minutes long, but it was damning. Cold. Unforgivable. I uploaded it. Within 24 hours, the site crashed from traffic. News outlets picked it up. The headline hit like a sledgehammer. HOA President delays ambulance. Child nearly dies. I didn't use Lily's name, but our street address was already public record. The emails poured in. Some were from neighbors, finally emboldened to speak. Others came from people across the country, strangers with their own HOA horror stories. Karen called an emergency board meeting. I wasn't invited, of course, but the minutes were leaked. She called the video selectively edited. She called me, an emotionally unstable father using a tragedy to push a personal vendetta. But her grip was slipping. The Ruiz family publicly resigned from the HOA. Amy posted her story with photos of her son smiling in the band swing. Even the McAllisters, retired, quiet, apolitical, stood on their porch with signs that read, "Accountability now." Karen tried to fight back. Sent cease and desist letters. Threatened legal action. But I'd done my homework. Every file on my site had sources, timestamps, and consent. She couldn't touch it. And then, something happened that even I didn't expect. 1. The EMT's report hit harder than any video could. It confirmed what the footage had shown and what the neighborhood had whispered for years. Karen Whitmore wasn't just enforcing rules, she was endangering lives. By the time the report surfaced, the HOA board was in complete disarray. 2 members had resigned. One issued a public apology, claiming Karen often made decisions without board input, citing executive privilege. Her inner circle had started to crumble. No one wanted to be associated with her anymore, not after national headlines painted her as the villain in a suburban nightmare. But she didn't back down. She doubled down. Karen called a press conference on her front lawn, complete with a podium, flags, and a lawyer who looked deeply uncomfortable. Her speech was rehearsed, her tones syrupy sweet. "I've always acted with the safety and standards of this community in mind," she declared. "The recent attacks against my character are unfortunate distortions of the truth." Distortions. That word echoed in my head like a dare. That same night, I posted the full 911 call. I had filed a public records request and received it just days before. Hearing my own voice crack, screaming for help as Lily gasped for air, was like reliving a nightmare. But people needed to hear it. Needed to know. The sound of the dispatcher's voice, urgent and calm. The moment I shouted, "She's blocking the entrance." The silence that followed. By morning, Karen's reputation wasn't just ruined, it was radioactive. Her lawyer dropped her. Local TV stations camped outside her home. Protest signs littered her lawn. "Resign or be removed. Lily deserves justice. No more Karen's rule." And still, she clung to her position. Until the petition started. It only took 34% of homeowners to force a special election under HOA bylaws. I'd read the rules forward and backward. Within a week, I had signatures from over 60%. The moment I turned them in, Karen's power was officially contested. A date was set, a vote of no confidence, open to all homeowners. Karen tried one last trick. She mailed out glossy flyers filled with lies, claiming I was unstable, that I was trying to abolish community standards and bring chaos to Pine Ridge Estates. But the damage was done. No amount of propaganda could erase the truth now. On the night of the vote, the community center was packed. Faces I hadn't seen in months showed up. People Karen had scared into silence were now sitting beside each other, united. I stood quietly in the back, holding Lily's hand. She was tired, but she insisted on coming. Said she wanted to be there when the bad lady goes away. When Karen walked in, the room fell quiet. She stood at the front with that same clipboard, that same smug smile, but her eyes darted, searching for allies that no longer existed. The vote wasn't close. 87% voted for her removal.
She didn't speak, didn't stay.
She walked out alone, her heels clicking against tile like the ticking of a broken clock. The next day, a U-Haul sat in front of her house. She was gone within a week. I didn't throw a celebration. There was no parade, no gloating. Just a calm that settled over the neighborhood like a long-awaited spring rain. The HOA board was restructured. New leadership was voted in, people like Carlos, Amy, and others who had once felt voiceless. The rules weren't abolished, but they were reviewed, revised, and finally used to support, not control, the community. Lily recovered slowly. Her heart was still fragile, but her spirit? Stronger than ever. One evening, as we sat on the porch, she looked up at me and asked, "Is it over now?" I nodded. "It's over." But what I didn't need to say, was that we'd never let it happen again. Karen thought she was untouchable because she hid behind rules and fear. But all it took was the truth, a little courage, and a daughter worth fighting for.